I'm John McKee, editor of Messianic Apologetics, messianicapologetics.net. And I would like to welcome you to this episode of Messianic Insider, your theology and news roundup for September the 10th, 2025. There were a lot of things which took place during the night. I'm sure many of you know about the issue of Russian drones in Poland right now and how NATO is going to respond to this. So we'll be getting into some of that further on. Without any doubt, there are many people right now, especially with the fall high holidays coming up, who are very anxious, they're very tense, and they're very concerned. So please do your best to try to stay grounded. We know the Lord is in control. We know that today's Messianic community is going through some changes. Its future, what it's going to emerge into. And along with that, our ministry is doing the best we can to help stabilize things. So we do have a brief theology roundup. We're going to be discussing an issue from Deuteronomy as it involves whether or not a man in ancient Israel could have two wives at the same time. All right, so we're going to get started on our theology roundup. Our teaching is actually taken from our ministry publication, Men and Women in the Body of Messiah, Answering Crucial Questions. And for certain, one of the big things which can circulate from time to time within the Messianic sphere of ideas, some of you all may remember the big polygamy fiasco going back to 2008 for many people, many non-Jewish people who entered into Messianic things. That was a break the bank or deal breaker. They were willing to tolerate a lot of the extremism, understand some of the growing pains, but once somebody came out and endorsed polygamy or plural marriage, that was it. And indeed, our family's own, my own Messianic participation, continued Messianic participation at the time was challenged. And since then, our family has had other incidents when we see something we don't like, and the question has been raised, do you want to continue in the Messianic community or just return to a safer evangelical environment and be enriched on the side? So that is how important this issue actually is. All right, let me change screens really quickly and we'll get into this. This is a short teaching. We do have a lot of news. Okay, there we go. Deuteronomy 21:15 through 17 is our passage, and this is something which I'm sure some of you all have heard. A man having multiple wives was seemingly something normal in ancient Israel. Was it? So this is something important for us to look at. Deuteronomy 21:15 through 17. If a man has two wives, the one loved and the other unloved, and both the loved and the unloved have borne him sons, if the firstborn son belongs to the unloved, then it shall be in the day he wills what he has to his sons, he cannot make the son of the loved the firstborn before the son of the unloved, who is the firstborn. But he shall acknowledge the firstborn, the son of the unloved, by giving him a double portion of all that he has, for he is the beginning of his strength. To him belongs the right of the firstborn. New American Standard. Okay. Deuteronomy 21:15 through 17 on the surface, at least to some Bible readers, does appear to reflect a condition of polygamy within ancient Israel. After all, if a man has two wives, Exodus 21:15, New American Standard. But is the context of this passage a man who presently has two wives, one whom he loves and one whom he does not love? Or is the context of the passage the proper dispensing of inheritance to the firstborn son, perhaps a son born to an unloved wife? Deuteronomy 21:17. And indeed, that should be Deuteronomy 21:15. Sorry about that. Make a note. Okay, so this is where the issue of a verb tense does actually come in handy. A lot of people, when they read an English translation of the Bible in the Messianic community, they just tend to think that it's definitions. Those are the only things which count. That's not true. This is where a verb tense actually does play a role in a proper interpretation. In his Toward Old Testament Ethics, Walter C. Kaiser indicates that in Deuteronomy 21:15, quote, the Hebrew verb is not so easily translated, unquote. The clause in question opens verse 15, Ki tiyena laish shte nashim, if a man have two wives. Jerusalem Bible by Koren. The verb tiyena appears in the call imperfect tense, which is normally translated as a future tense verb in English, i.e., if a man will have two wives. Kaiser goes on to say, quote, Hebrew is notoriously disinterested in our Western preoccupation with the tense of the verb and time in general, unquote. This means that when one translates the Hebrew Tanakh into English, context must always be considered and value judgments have to be made. So, is Moses issuing a ruling based on whether a man has two wives at the same time or has had two wives in a sequence, with one dying and being replaced by another? How much of that has been considered when this passage has been quoted in support of polygamy? Ki tihena laish was translated into languages with more specific verb tenses long before English came on the scene. The Greek Septuagint renders Deuteronomy 21:15 with the clause eon de genontai, meaning if there have been. This is similarly followed by the Latin Vulgate's rendering si haberit homo, or if a man have had. These ancient versions reflect a second view that it is not a man who presently has two wives as being the issue, but rather a man who has had two wives throughout the course of his life. The concern of Deuteronomy 21:15 through 17 is that proper inheritance in ancient Israel be offered to the firstborn son. If the man has had two wives, with one wife dying and him remarrying a second time, he cannot disregard children born from his first marriage. He must still consider the firstborn son from his first marriage to be the firstborn son, one who is to be granted a greater share of inheritance. Deuteronomy 21:15 through 17 cannot be viewed as endorsing any kind of polygamy, as that is not the central focus of the text. Inheritance is the central focus of the text. So, verb tenses matter. And how many people are out there within the Messianic sphere of influence, more likely Hebrew roots, who make conclusions based on a Strong's Concordance dictionary definition, and they have not considered more detailed reference sources, other Hebrew and Greek lexicons, which are a little newer and much more reliable. But how many of them don't pay attention to verb tenses, things like that, prepositional phrases, different clauses? That is something which we encounter, our family has encountered far too many times in our Messianic experience. It's very upsetting. It's very disturbing. And indeed, this is where a little bit more research would have come in handy. All right, so that concludes our theology roundup for today. Let me switch windows back. there we go. And of course, once again, this short analysis has been taken from our ministry publication, Men and Women in the Body of Messiah, available in both paperback as well as ebook for Amazon Kindle. All right, so we do have a lot of news to cover, and right now we are especially piqued from things which have taken place over the past few days. Israel attacking Hamas leadership in Qatar, the ongoing Russia-Ukraine situation, which is getting larger now with Russian drones entering into Poland and different maneuvers now with NATO. So we'll have a number of events we have to trace the history of. The tension levels are very high right now. You probably know someone who very concerned about what's going to happen. Are we on the brink of a World War III? More likely, are we on the brink of a Cuban Missile Crisis level of tension? What's going to happen? You know, we've got the Middle East. So number one, pray for peace. Israel, Gaza, the Middle East. Number two, pray for peace. Russia, Ukraine, Eastern Europe. What's going to happen there? And then number three, we have some ongoing challenges here on the American home front. And the fall high holidays are quickly on our doorstep. So the tension level is high. People are very concerned. Please do your best to stay grounded, but also try to stay informed, because there are a lot of people who are acting like nothing's going on, and that is equally a problem. All right, so we always do the news analysis after the theology roundup, because the news, of course, changes from day to day. All of the links I'm about to go through, you'll be able to look at those later when this episode is archived at messianicapologetics.net. You can go read the articles, watch the clips in greater detail, etc. And these are things which have mostly come across my social media feed passively. These are not things I have gone out to look for. I haven't gone out to hunt for them. These are things I have simply encountered, just checking my different feeds and what have you. Okay, our first story, and this is from yesterday afternoon, September the 9th, open source intel. Qatar's readout of the call with Trump after the Israeli strike in Doha. During the call, the U.S. president expressed his solidarity with Qatar and strongly condemned the attack on its sovereignty, stressing that diplomatic solutions are enough to resolve the region's outstanding issues. Okay, we know that there are a lot of people in Washington right now who are not very happy about what took place with Israel bombing Hamas headquarters in Qatar. Okay, I'm not going to read all of this, but open source intel yesterday passed on the full Hamas important statement regarding the treacherous attempt by the Zionist occupation to assassinate the Hamas negotiating delegation today in the Qatari capital, Doha, is a heinous crime, a flagrant act of aggression, and a blatant violation of all international laws and norms. And here you have a list of all of those who were martyred, and they basically say the targeting of the negotiating delegation at a moment when it was discussing U.S. President Donald Trump's latest proposal proves beyond any doubt that Netanyahu and his government have no intention of reaching any agreement. That's their conclusion. And of course, this goes on and on and on. We know that different people in the international community are responding to this. We can expect, especially with the 2-year anniversary of the October 7th, 2023 attacks coming up, some kind of a point event is being pushed by the international community, whether it's going to be recognition of an independent Palestinian state, different countries threatening to perhaps terminate diplomatic relations with Israel. I mean, these are things which are happening in our world right now. From Open Source Intel Defender, and that's Carolyn Levitt, White House press secretary. According to the White House, President Donald J. Trump was only notified about today's Israeli airstrike against the Qatari capital of Doha during the attack, ordering Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to inform Qatar. The White House adds the president feels very badly about the location of the strike and has assured Qatar that there will be no further attacks against its territory. Afterwards, he spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Okay, there is some additional information which we're going to have to factor in. One of the things which can't be excluded is how there's a U.S. base in Qatar. So, how does that play into all of this and all of the tension? Yeah, I mean, this is. I don't think this is that good, but we know that, again, pay attention, stay calm, stay level-headed as best as possible. Okay, so our next story. This is from Instagram, The Atlantic. This discusses some of the difficulties of the woke right, in particular, some of the things you are witnessing in some branches of Christian nationalism, but The Atlantic is obviously a left-wing source. The MAGA influencers rehabilitating Hitler. Yeah, if this doesn't upset you, then you need to be paying attention, because it upsets me. The United States learned hard lessons from the Holocaust about the catastrophic consequences of conspiratorial prejudice. But now Yair Rosenberg argues a growing constituency on the right wants the nation to unlearn them. And here you see some references to what Tucker Carlson is doing, Candace Owens, a growing Nazi apologetics. You definitely see some people in branches of MAGA, Make America Great Again, Christian nationalism. They don't think Hitler was all that bad. And of course, it's also deeply tied into replacement theology, the church is the new Israel, etc. And we can't be ignorant of this, especially as the Messianic community, because it's tied into these ideas that the U.S. government is controlled by the Zionists, controlled by Israel. Israel is having the U.S. fight proxy wars for them in the Middle East. And I mean, it's just, goes on and on and on. But need to be aware of it. And people, it's not just on the fringe where you'd have to go to X or social media to find out about it. No, people in what would be considered more mainstream media are picking up on it. And it's very upsetting. It's very disturbing. All right, from open source intel, yesterday afternoon, President Trump has called the EU to implement tariffs up to 100% on India and China to collectively push Russia to stop its war in Ukraine. I don't think that that's going to happen. There's been some more development on that. But the U.S. is ready to replicate any tariffs on the EU imposes on China and India per the Financial Times. The main thing here, because of course tariffs, that comes and goes, sanctions, they come and go. Here, to collectively push Russia to stop its war in Ukraine. That's what all of this talk is about. And indeed, the two issues which dominate the news cycle today, response to what took place in Qatar and Russian drones in Poland. From open source intel yesterday afternoon, September the 9th, Piers Morgan takes issue with Israel taking out terror leaders who are holding 48 hostages. Israel's attack on Qatar is so indefensible, even President Trump isn't defending it. Netanyahu is out of control. Now, we know that personalities, of course, they change their mind frequently. We also know that the president is in a very difficult position because of U.S. forces based in Qatar. Excuse me. Okay. So next, open source intel forwarding on what President Trump posted to his Truth Social platform. So this is yesterday afternoon. Trump on Qatar Hamas attack. This morning, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that Israel was attacking Hamas which very unfortunately was located in a section of Doha, the capital of Qatar. This was a decision made by Prime Minister Netanyahu. It was not a decision made by me. Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States, that is working very hard and bravely, taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel's or America's goals. Now, this is where things get a little interesting. You can read it all later. But however, eliminating Hamas, who have profited off of the misery of those living in Gaza, is a worthy goal. So basically, yes, the president publicly is upset with what took place. He is also pleased enough that Hamas leadership has been severely damaged. All right, so this is one which came across my Instagram feed yesterday from End Time Headlines. You're going to see a lot of this as we get closer and closer to the fall high holidays. After the rapture, the world will be thrown into chaos. You mocked, you rejected, now you face the wrath. Okay, so there are, of course, a lot of people out there who are anticipating the rapture, pre-trib rapture this year. And they're going to be posting memes like that. You know, in case of rapture, this website will be unmanned. This X channel, this YouTube channel, whatever it is, will be unmanned, right? There's not going to be anybody here to talk to you or help you. Some of you all may remember one of the dramatic presentations of, you know, the pre-trib rapture, where there was a church and they had all of these pre-recorded videos for those who were, you know, left behind. What are you going to do? How are you going to face the beast? That sort of thing. So yeah, expect to see more and more of that in the days to come. And of course, if a pre-trib rapture does not come on their presumed timetable, are people just going to, okay, well, it's just speculation, or are they going to fall into the warning Peter issues? Where is the promise of his coming? That is something which we should all be very concerned about. Okay, from Newsmax yesterday. House UAP hearing shows UFO shrugging off missile strike. A group of military whistleblowers testified under oath Tuesday that they had witnessed UFOs and accused the U.S. intelligence community of attempting to conceal the encounters. Now, UFO conspiracy theories, they have been around, of course, since the 1940s and the 1950s. But this is a live wire issue for many people, especially many younger people. We know with the new Trump administration that there was the big promise of more transparency, declassifying of secrets, JFK, RFK, MLK, and of course that would lead to things like this. So yeah, there's a lot of questions about this whole issue of UAPs. Those are unidentified aerial phenomenon. We wait and see. Many people in the religious community tend to connect that to a return of the Genesis 6 Nephilim. All right, so most of the news stories, not all of them, from here on out will pertain to the situation which has arisen in Poland. Something which started yesterday, late yesterday afternoon. So we're going to be tracing a series of posts for this. From open source intel, Poland Prime Minister Donald Tusk. I informed the NATO Secretary General about the current situation and the actions we have taken regarding the objects that violated our airspace. We are in constant contact. From Open Source Intel Defender, this is late last night, September the 9th. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is currently meeting with defense and security officials to discuss tonight's major intrusion by several Russian drones into Poland, with him expected to convene an extraordinary session of the Council of Ministers at 8 a.m. Also, open source intel defender. This is from late last night. Following tonight's incident involving Russian one-way attack drones entering eastern Poland, the Polish Territorial Defense Force has shortened the times needed for defense personnel to be prepared to report for active service. And he mentions a number of regions. They're required to be ready within 6 hours. Personnel in the central regions should be ready within 12 hours, and those in western Poland do not need to be prepared for call-up by the Territorial Defense Force. So, yes, this is concerning. What have the Russians been doing? Okay, a few more. Visegrad 24. This is early this morning on September the 10th. Poland officially confirms its fighter jets shot down several Russian suicide drones that intruded its airspace a few hours ago. Now from Instagram, and a lot of these are from Visegrad 24, which is a Central to Eastern European news source. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas believes that the intrusion of Russian drones was deliberate, not accidental. Okay. And here, this is the one that's going to get everybody going today and probably over the next few days. Visegrad 24, this is during the middle of the night. Poland officially announces it just invoked NATO Article 4. Now, if you go and you look up NATO Article 4, that means that there needs to be some kind of a consultation among member states of NATO when one member state's territory has seemingly been violated or there's been some kind of an incursion. And this is something which has been invoked over the years, several times by NATO. Okay, Visegrad 24, 4:45 a.m. this morning. Poland has asked NATO to activate Article 4 of the alliance's charter. Consultations with our allies have taken the form of an official request to trigger Article 4 of the NATO charter. This is our joint recommendation with the president, said Prime Minister Tusk. According to him, mere statements are not enough in the current situation, and Warsaw will push for more from its allies. Article 4 of the NATO Charter provides that member states may initiate consultations if their security or territorial integrity is under threat. Okay, so this doesn't mean that NATO is immediately going to start some kind of a conflict with the Russian Federation, but it does mean everyone is going to have to take what has taken place seriously. Russian drones entering into Polish territory. What is this about? So yeah, we could definitely see tensions on the rise over the next few days. Okay, this also concerns Europe, but it involves Israel. From open source intel this morning at 3:03 a.m., European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced plans to propose sanctions on extremist Israeli ministers and a partial suspension of the EU-Israel Association Agreement. Right, so expect to see some more of this sort of thing in light of what took place, Israel attacking Hamas's headquarters in Qatar. Okay, Visegrad 24, and this is also during the night, 6:05 a.m. this morning. The Kremlin says it won't comment on last night's drone incursions into Poland, saying the EU and NATO accuse Russia of provocations daily without any arguments. Okay. Now here is kind of a map Visegrad 24 has provided on their X channel. Breaking, a Russian suicide drone has been found in near Eblog, I hope I pronounced that properly, right next to Gdansk. Okay. It is nearly 500 kilometers from the border with Ukraine, and the furthest west a Russian suicide drone has struck so far in this war. indeed. That is not something which is just, immediately adjacent to the Russian-Ukrainian theater of combat. It's, deep inside of Poland. So yes, the Poles are understandably concerned, and they've activated NATO Article 4. Open source intel defender. NATO has activated Article 4 of the North Atlantic Treaty at the request of Poland following last night's intrusion of several dozen Russian one-way attack drones into Polish airspace. Article 4 directs the North Atlantic Council to begin immediate defense and military consultations for emergencies or situations of urgency when the territorial integrity, political independence, or security of any of the parties is threatened. And this is from 7:34 a.m. today. So yes, the world is a very dangerous place. Very dangerous place. Pray for world peace. Okay, so we talked yesterday about the situation in Nepal, and here Visegrad 24 posted this little video. Nepal's parliament building in Kathmandu set on fire by protesters on September the 9th, 2025 during anti-corruption unrest that killed over 20 and led to Prime Minister Oli's resignation. Okay, now, I don't know, I have to admit, that much about the situation in Nepal, but this isn't good. You don't have to be blind to see this. The world's a dangerous place, and while these kinds of things do happen, you wonder, is this just, anti-corruption protest, or is it, some kind of borderline revolution taking place? We'll continue to watch and see. But you also have to remember, God has his people everywhere across the world, and one of the most important things is we have to pray for his people no matter where they are, because only Yeshua, only his salvation is the answer to these sorts of things. Okay, per the situation in the Middle East, this was interesting. This is from 8:39 a.m. from Open Source Intel Updates. And according to their information, at least, UK and US fuel tankers took off from Qatar, refueled Israeli fighter jets that were attacking Qatar, and then landed in Qatar. Okay? Now, we know, of course, this is information which, it's information. How accurate is it? How inaccurate is it? But, okay, yes, there is, certainly a U.S. and UK military presence in Qatar. These refueling tankers took off from Qatar, refueled Israeli jets that were presumably involved in this military action against Hamas in Qatar, and then these refueling planes landed back in Qatar. So what does that tell you about what the U.S. administration for certain may have known or not known about this activity? We just have to wait and let this kind of a matter continue to unfold. Right. I mean, the world of politics is one of intrigue, secrets, backroom deals, back channel communications. I don't really care for subterfuge myself. Okay, from Visegrad 24, here you have, this is from 9:35 a.m. this morning. We have no doubt this was not an accident. Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski, apologies if I mispronounced that, commented on the incursion of Russian drones into the country's territory. Poland's airspace was violated 19 times. Russian UAVs flew over the country and were shot down. We have no doubt this was not an accidental incident, Sikorski said. According to him, Putin is mocking President Trump's peace efforts. After the summit in Alaska, instead of ceasefire, we got intensified Russian attacks on Ukraine. What happened in the Polish sky is the result of an intensified offensive phase. Okay, you can look at the rest of it later. Yeah, there are a lot of questions right now. Many of us were very hopeful, praying for peace after the Alaska summit between Trump and Putin. And then, of course, a few days later, the summit at the White House. with President Zelensky and different European and NATO leaders. And then recently, the summit in Paris at the Elysee Palace. But now we see, Putin's attacking Ukraine. Is he attacking Poland? What is going on here? And we're going to close up with this from Open Source Intel Defender. This is from 10:14 a.m. this morning, so this is as up to date as I have it before we went live today. U.S. President Donald Trump's first statement on last night's Russian drone incursions into Poland. What's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? Here we go! Exclamation point. And I have to observe how that is not too dissimilar from what I said when the U.S. entered into the conflict during the 12-day war. I remember texting a number of friends and family members that we're in it now. That's the same kind of line. Here we go. So what does that mean? What has the Trump administration been anticipating, which they possibly haven't been telling the American public and others? So yes, pray for peace, Israel, Gaza, the Middle East. Number 2, pray for peace, Russia and Ukraine. Number 3, pray for peace in the world in situations like those in Nepal. Regardless of the specifics, the Lord is definitely trying to get our collective attention, realizing that the world is not a nice place. Only Yeshua himself can solve all these problems. We've got the fall high holidays coming up, and please make sure that while there's a lot of unwarranted speculation out there with pre-trib rapture stuff and everything else, be sure that you are pressing into the Lord. What's next for us? What's next for me? What's next for my family? What's next for this Messianic movement? Don't put your head in the sand and act like so many people I know, well, I'm just going to study Torah because, this just concerns the Goyim. No, it concerns the kingdom. And for those of us who believe that the Messianic community has an important role to play in future events, now is the time to start asking God, what is the next few years going to look like? The next 10 years, the next 20 years, and what changes are in store? Because, my personal opinion, as we try to keep people grounded, is this could come to a borderline break event like a Cuban Missile Crisis type thing. I don't think we're going into World War III, but we have a lot of scared people out there. We have a lot of concerned people out there, and we have to, as believers, be there to offer comfort, solace, and direction. As always, on behalf of Outreach Israel Ministries and Messianic Apologetics, I would like to sincerely thank you for your ongoing prayers, encouragement, and support for all of our ministry efforts. If you haven't, please do check out our website, messianicapologetics.net. There you can access a wide number of free articles, frequently asked questions entries, other studies, back episodes of Messianic Insider, McKee Moment Shorts, and you can take a look at our different activities and adventures over the years. We'll see you again tomorrow with another episode of Messianic Insider. Until then, may God bless you, shalom, and take care.